Welcome back to Shadows of the Workshop, a series on my channel where we take a deep dive into the fascinating stories of prop makers and creators of all walks of life. Today I have the honor of hosting a true legend in the industry. He helped sculpt some of our most beloved franchises that we've grown to love. From Star Wars, Aliens, Indiana Jones, even Tomb Raider. So everybody, sit back and relax, and let's walk through the shadows of the workshop with Brian Muir. All right, we are here at Shadows of the Workshop. We have Brian here joining us, and Brian, I just want to say thank you so much for, coming on and telling us your story. So, how have you been?
Oh, it's been, as I said, it's been a busy year. In fact, it is every year. I'm not working in the film industry anymore. I worked for 48 years in the film industry, and I retired about 7, 8 years ago now. So we travel all over the world to conventions, meeting fans, and we enjoy the traveling part of it, and we enjoy meeting fans. So yeah, we're having a good time.
Oh, I bet you, doing all the movies and in the industry, I bet you saw the world.
Not so much in the film industry. I went away on location about 5 times, and 3 times were to Malta. The 3 films I worked on there was Clash of the Titans, Cutthroat Island, and can't think of the other picture now. It was the first Martian Chronicles. That was it. So that was Rock Hudson was in that. It was a bit of a strange thing, really, but enjoyed being out there. The island was lovely then. That's changed now. The island isn't what it used to be. There's high rise and cars everywhere where there wasn't at the time. That was back in 1979. I first went out there. Another one I went to was Budapest on a film, Prince and the Pauper. And I did Ireland. I went out to Ireland to Braze Studios to work on. I'm trying to think. Excalibur. That was it. Yeah, John Bullman was director on it. So yeah, that was nice. Ireland's a lovely country, and you've got the Wicklow Mountains around there, which I carved a 22-foot high dragon that there was gold outside of the castle, but I had to go up and age it all down. Up in the Wicklow Mountains, there's a petrified forest there, and I think there's only 2 in Europe. So we went up there and aged it all down, and then I had to take it back to the studio. I had a group of riggers up there with me, helping me set it all up, and then had to make it all good, having knocked it about. And then it was all painted, really nice gold, and put up outside the castle. But 48 years in the film industry and starting very young. I was extremely lucky that I was the only apprentice sculptor ever in the film industry. So I had a great start. So at the age of 16, I was a professional sculptor. Working on small British films for 4 years, and then when I finished on the day I come out my apprenticeship, I was made redundant. They got rid of me. The reason being is the film industry was in a hell of a mess then, and so they made me redundant. And I was very lucky for a second time. I got a job up in London, a company that had been going for 100 years, and I had prestigious work all over London. I'd work unveiled by the Queen of England, work unveiled by the Queen Mother, and did really lovely work for 3 years. Then I had a phone call. And I want to go back into the film industry.
Now, real quick, before you got into the film and before you became a sculptor, what drew you into art and sculpting? How did that kick in? Was it from a young age, or I mean, obviously you started at 16 years old. So when did you know?
Well, at the age of 13, I'd never really been into art. I discovered that I could draw and paint. And I spent 3 years doing as much as I possibly could. And I got to the point where I thought I'd love to go into a job where I could use my skills. But the chance of me doing that was almost zero. The only way you could go is through art college. And then after art college, you got very little chance of getting into work. So luck was with me. They turned down for the interview for the film industry. They turned down 12 people before me. And as I say, I was lucky. They took the old guy that trained me. He took to me, and a week later, I got a letter from the studios saying they'd like me to start as an apprentice sculptor, which I had 4 years. And in those 4 years, as well as the films that I was working on, which were only small British films, I would go to art college 2 days and 2 nights a week to do life drawing, life sculpting, wood carving, lettering, and a bit of stone carving I did as well. And then I had a phone call saying, no, actually, I finished on that. I did the work outside, and then I had a phone call. Would I like to go back into the film industry? They had a film going into Elstree, and they said it was a sci-fi film, and they wanted some strange characters sculpted. And I thought, yeah, I'd really like to go back into the film industry. So I said yes, and it was Star Wars. I was still young at the time. I was still only 23 when I did Star Wars and all the characters.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think I just turned 24 when I more or less finished on the film. But, yeah, I had a lot of fun working on Star Wars. Got to know Liz Moore quite well, who did C-3PO. She did leave I started at the beginning of January, and she'd been on it for a few months by then. C-3PO was more or less finished. But by the time she left, she'd done the clay side of it. But when she left, I had to do all the finishing work on C-3PO. And when I actually started on the film, I did all the Stormtrooper armour, starting with the chest, then all the front, the arms. And then for the back, there was no Ralph McQuarrie concept for that. So we had to make that up between John Barry, who was the designer on it, and myself. We talked it over and decided that we'd do a panel on the back of the Stormtrooper. And because Liz had left the picture then and I had so much work to do, I thought I'll take the easy route. I'll go down to the prop room and see what I can find down there. And I found a cog and 2 bits of oblong wood. So I took them back up and I stuck them on the panel. And all these years later, I would hear all sorts of reasons for the cog and the two. And really, the only reason they were there is because it saved me time to do it that way. I had to sculpt the panel and the frame around it and that, and make all the rest of the back up, so it married in all the way round. And as I say, I stuck them up on just to save a bit of time. So when I finished the Stormtrooper, funny enough, Liz had gone out to see her boyfriend on a film he was working on, A Bridge Too Far. He was the head of the special effects on it. And unbeknown to me at the time, although I'd done all the Stormtrooper armour, Liz did the helmet, Stormtrooper helmet. And I didn't know it, just arrived. I went into work one morning, it was sitting on the table outside the workshop that I was working. It was only a small workshop in the art department. I think we were up there so that John Barry could come in on a daily basis and not have to trundle up the end of the studio to a workshop there. So, yeah, as I say, Liz did this Stormtrooper helmet, and I only found out that she did it when I got involved in a court case in the High Court for Lucasfilm when SDS, Shepperson Design Studios, he was saying that he'd sculpted it all, and he hadn't. All he did was vacuum formed on top of the moulds that were provided from the studios. And anyway, I thought, well, I can't have him stealing my history, so I went for that reason. And Lucas were taking him to court because the licensees who had spent about $2 million to get a license to do them were complaining and saying, well, there's this guy in England churning out Stormtroopers and he hasn't got a license or anything. We paid for a license. So Lucasfilm took him to court in America and they found against him for $20 million, which was far too much. He didn't have that sort of money and no way could he ever pay it. So they had to take him to court in England. And they had to bring this money side of it down a hell of a lot. He says he actually won the court case, but he didn't. Lucas won 243 points brought up in court out of 246. So he lost the court case, but the judge deemed the Stormtrooper as industrial and not art. And industrial, the copyright runs out after 15 years instead of 50. So Lucas lost the copyright around the world, but they still have it in America.
That is absolutely wild. Like I never knew about that. That's wild.
Yeah. Oh, it's gone on for years. We've written a book about the Stormtrooper. In lockdown during COVID, we wrote the book because we're forever answering questions. So we thought, well, we'll write the book and that's the end of it. People, if they want to know, they can, buy the book and know exactly what happened through the film and since. So, and there's other films in the book as well, just to add interest. But yeah,
Sorry to interrupt, but where can people find that book? Because I'm definitely going to be very interested in purchasing that.
Yeah, it's on our website.
Okay.
You'll find the website easy enough.
Just under Brian Muir Vader.
Yeah, just under Brian Muir Vader Sculptor, you'll get to it. There's two other books as well, but they're autobiography. In the Shadow of Vader, it's really from birth right through to 1987. And then the last book was from 87 up until I retired.
Okay, I'll definitely get those linked and put into the description as well so everyone can find those, because I know there's probably going to be a bunch of people interested, especially on, the Stormtrooper and hearing all about your life. So we'll definitely get that linked for sure.
Yeah, we've had over the years now. I mean, In the Shadow was 14 years ago that came out, and a lot of people have bought it, but mainly we sell it through conventions we go to. We normally take about 25 books.
And then they want the second one when they've read the first.
Yeah, when they've read the first, they want the second one to finish it off. And then the Stormtrooper, it's a book in its own right. And a lot of people really enjoy that one. It's quite nice.
I definitely can't wait to get my hands on one for sure.
Plenty of photos.
As Lindsay said, there's plenty of photos in it. There's plenty to look at as well as read. So yeah, I mean, it's one thing talking about something, but when you can actually see photos of what you're talking about, it makes a big difference for people.
So I got a question about like getting into the process of sculpting. So like, what is your like routine? Like, what was your routine like when you had a project that was about to start and you had the idea of how you were going to portray that idea and putting it down? You know, what like for me, it's listening to music and, you know, trying to dive into how to take this concept out of my head and, you know, achieve it. Like, what is your full process?
Well, the process, I mean, especially with films that are period. So if you've got a period film and you've got a certain style of work to do, they would maybe give you a 6-inch picture in a book, say a king with 4 wings was one I did. So I draw that up to 14 foot odd high. And then once I've drawn it, I can sculpt it in the clay. I don't need any processing. I'm lucky enough to be a position where if I could see something 2-dimensional, I can immediately see it 3-dimensional. So there's no real process other than having a picture, or they tell me what they want and I'll come up with something. But yeah, there's no big secret about anything really. It's just getting what they need as such, whether it be a period film. And there's plenty of them, even Clash of the Titans. I worked on the first one with Sir Laurence Olivier and Maggie Smith and that as the two of the gods. That was all Assyrian work. So I went up to London and I went to the British Museum and I spent a day up there looking at Assyrian work. And I saw how they did it. I mean, panels. It looks like what you're doing, whether it be figures or whatever, it looks as though they're actually coming out on the panel. But when you actually look at it up there, they're not coming out from the panel. What they do is they round the ground into it. It's almost like you're carving it. So the way I did it, when I come back, I would put, say, 1 inch or 1.5 inches of clay on a board. I put the transfer a drawing onto that. Then I would carve it away and then do the figures carving again. So you're carving the clay. You can't do it when it's too soft. You have to let it firm up a bit. So that was the system for that. But when I did that 14-foot figure for Alexander the Great, because it was 5 inches deep, I just cheated a bit and I put it straight onto a flat background. So it's not quite how it would have been done, but it was fine. It worked very well. So I got away with that. But yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, Bond movies, things like GoldenEye, all the big Russian statues in the statue park. There were 2 of us carved all them. Stalin was 20 foot high. Lenin was 17 foot high. We did a head of Lenin, which was 10 foot high. Loads and loads of panels and other heads. The whole statue park, we carved that all in 10 weeks for film, and they put it all up on the lot. So I did it at my workshop, which was at Boreham Wood, and then they shipped it all out to Leaston Studios, which is now Walnut. So they made all Harry Potter films there, which I worked on for. And so, yeah, that was the first film that ever went into the Walnut Studios that is there. And all the Harry Potter films were made after that. But when I first went to see Peter Lamont, who was, I worked on 10 Bond movies, and went to see him there with Derek, the guy that carved them all with me. And it was an old Rolls-Royce factory, and a lot of the machines were still on the factory floor. So they had to get rid of all them and build a few stages. And so that was the first film in there, but they're making lots of huge movies in there now.
What did you guys do with all the Rolls Royces?
Oh, there was none of them there. It was just the machinery that they used to. So they all had to be pulled out and taken away for scrap metal, I think. But
weren't they used for planes? Those engines
used for what?
Planes, aeroplanes.
They were used for planes as well, because aeroplane engines are Rolls-Royce. So it's not so much the cars, I don't think. It was for planes, yeah.
That's what they used for IG-88, didn't they?
Yeah. So I've got my other half over there.
She's welcome to join too.
Well, she's been to every convention I've ever done all around the world. She's been to every single one of them and written the books with me and that. So she knows a lot about Star Wars, and especially the Stormtrooper.
I know with my wife, she definitely knows more than I do. So about everything. But it's amazing that she's there with you and supporting.
Yeah. Yeah, we enjoy traveling together. The trouble is when the conventions, they have to pay for 2 fares, which some of them can't always afford. But we do a lot.
Well, how did you two meet, you and your wife?
Funny enough, we both came from Boreham Wood, but had never met, and we met out in Benidorm in Spain. And I knew that the girl that she went out there with, and bumped into her and got chatting. And then, funny enough, me and my mates went out to a nightclub one night, and she was there. And the rest is history, really.
That's amazing. So outside of me building props and painting, I'm a jeweler. So, I love hearing stories about how, people meet and how they met their spouse and all of that. That's amazing.
You hear that a lot then. If you're making things for people that are getting married or engaged or...
Well, nowadays you hear more of, we met online, we met on an app, and, and it's just amazing that I met my wife, in the real world, and, I held the door open for her walking into a mall one day. Right. That's how I met my wife. So
love at first sight.
Yeah. It was one of those I held the door open for her, and she was on the phone, and she looked me up and down. She was like, thanks. And I was like, I just held the door open for you. What? But got to talking to her, and after that, and she was absolutely amazing. We've been together ever since, literally from day one.
Yeah, very nice. So did you want to talk about other films, or had you got questions on stuff?
Really, it comes down to where do you want to go? Because I looked up your IMDb, and it's so full of amazing movies that you've been a part of, franchises. I mean, Harry Potter, one of my favorite movie franchises, book series. Star Wars, I absolutely love. I'm obsessed with. And then Tomb Raider and Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just, you have such an amazing resume. It's amazing. So wherever you want to go, whatever you want to talk about, I do have questions I know probably Darth Vader sculpting his helmet and all that is probably one of the most cherished things that you've ever made. But on your, what's your top 5 best things that you are the most proud of, that you were a part of and you made?
It's very hard to say. I mean, obviously I'm proud that I did Darth Vader. It's taken us around the world, and it's so iconic and known around the world. Even China, we went to China twice one year, to Beijing and Shanghai, and they were mad keen on Star Wars out there. They'd only had it 5 years from 5 years previous. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen so much of the world because of it. Japan, Philippines, all over Europe. So, yeah, I mean, we've had such a good time because of Vader. I have to love it. I don't think it's necessarily my best bit of work, because everything was needed so quickly on Star Wars. You did what you could in the time. After Liz went, I was the only sculptor. I worked for 76 days without a day off. So come the end of the film, I was quite shattered, really. But I mean, I enjoyed working on the Indiana Jones films. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I worked on the Ark of the Covenant. 2 of us worked on that. I did the snake that was in front of Harrison Ford, the cobra. When they shoot from behind his head, there's a big glass screen, and there's a real cobra there, and you see it swaying. And then when they shoot back the other way, they couldn't use a glass screen because you'd see it. So when they look at his terrified face, that's the cobra that I sculpted.
Wow.
But the one I worked on all of the first 3 Indiana Jones pictures, but the one I enjoyed most was Temple of Doom. I had some real nice work to do on that. In fact, I did another snake there when Kate Capshaw was leaning against a tree, and you see a 14-foot python comes down out the tree and comes onto her shoulder, and she grabs the head and throws it. Well, she was terrified of snakes and wouldn't have a snake near her, so I sculpted the 14-foot python that comes down out of the tree, and it was painted by a lady called Val Charlton. She did a really nice job of painting it. It did look pretty realistic. But if you stop the film at the point where the snake lands, you can see it's lifeless. And you would probably never pull a snake out of a tree because its tail would be wrapped round a branch or something. You wouldn't just pull it out. Also, that same scene, there was a baby elephants behind the actors that were sitting in front of the fire. And for close-ups, you can't get a baby elephant to do what you want it to do when you say roll for the camera. So I sculpted a baby elephant, and they put the hairs in the trunk. The trunk would move any way they wanted. They had wires going down the back of the head. The eyes were put in and could move any way. So they used that for close-ups. So they could say, yeah, action, and they could get the baby elephants to do whatever they wanted it to. But that was that. But another one that you might remember the scene, the scene where you've got the sacrifice, and the high priest puts his hand into his body and pulls the heart out, and it's still pumping. Well, I had to sculpt the heart, and they decided that it'd be a good idea if I went to see a heart surgeon in Harefield Hospital, which specialises in heart surgery. So I went there, and I was sitting chatting with the heart surgeon, and I said, what's the best heart I can get? And he said, well, the primates, which I couldn't get. So I settled for a sheep's heart in the end that I could get. And he said, that's fairly close to tissue, and that is like a human heart. So I had a plastic model, hospital model. So I got all the veins coming off at the same place. And all the detailing was done from the sheep's heart. But as I was leaving, he said, oh, by the way, he said, I'm doing open heart surgery tomorrow. Would you like to come along? It didn't take me long to say, oh, no way, I didn't want to go. I wouldn't have been any good to me anyway. I would probably have had to stood 10 foot away, and I can hardly stop him halfway through the operation and say, "Can you put yourself up there for it? I want to get some pictures or something." So it wouldn't have been any good for me. It would have been just ghoulish to go and see it, although it would have been an experience, I suppose. But yeah, and lots of other work on there. I did the horses that in the banquet sequence, the horses that were they were about probably 8 or 9 foot long and probably 7 or 8 foot high, and they were to look like sandstone. So I had to carve 2 of them because there was an archway and they both faced into the arch. So I had to carve 2, and then they were stuck on to this wall with a framework round them and then painted to look like sandstone. But they were behind the dancers and the musicians were past the individual ones. And there was lots and lots of other work on it that was nice to do. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. But there were other things like Alien, the first film, Alien, I worked on that and worked with Giger mainly, although Frank White was the designer on it. It was all to Giger's designs. So the space jockey, which is 26 foot high, I don't know if you can remember that piece. But yeah, there were 2 of us sculpted that. A guy called Peter Voisey and myself sculpted it in a month. Some people think Giger did it, but he posed against it and made it look like he had worked on it, but he didn't. He did a lot of finishing on it in the way of painting and airbrushing and sticking bits of latex skin on it and that sort of thing. But no, the sculpting was done by Peter and myself. But it was an interesting film to work on. We were on H stage at Shepperton Film Studios, and we were ready to go ahead with the entrances to the spaceship. So Giger came up with our reference, and the reference was top shelf magazines with very explicit pictures of a woman's vagina. And when he left us, as I say, we had these magazines with real close-up pictures. And when he left the stage, we looked at each other and we laughed and we said, "There's no way we can do what he's given us there." So the actual entrances are just stylized versions. Some people might realise what they were, but a lot maybe not. They just look organic. Yeah, there was a lot of nice work to do on that, and Giger was a real character. He 5 or 6 months I worked on that film, and every single day he wore black. Never anything else but black. And his girlfriend, Mia, she was the same, only ever wore black. And he was a wizard and she was a witch. So they were characters. But I used to go down the pub with him and sit and chat and that. And I actually went down to the art department. I was watching him airbrushing the space jockey. It was about 4 foot wide, the pictures of it. And funny enough, after the film, he sent me a couple of pictures. One of the full space jockey on the turnstile and one of a close-up of it. And they were in a cupboard for about 40 odd years. And then when we moved up to where we are now and we've got the office and that, we had them framed and they're up on the wall there and they look really nice. So they've got his signature on it, and 1978, he sent them. So, yeah, I mean, so many films, 70 films I worked on in all. Some of them are cult films, like Kroll is a bit of a cult film. But, and I was onto that picture very early. I worked on that nearly a year. But one of the first things I did was a scale model of a snake they wanted me to do. And it was going to be 70 foot long, this snake. So I did inch to a foot model of the snake. So it was 70 inches long and all twists and curls and all that. And out of one of the curls at the top, there's a woman that is coming out of it, and she's the sequence is the hero's going up through the hills, and from this cave he hears screaming coming out, and he goes running into the cave, sees the woman in the snake, goes towards her, and then she rears out the snake. She is the snake. So I was going to be up on the lot at Pinewood with 2 marquees end to end, and I was going to do this 70-foot snake there. And then the special effects worked out it was going to cost so much money and be difficult that it got scrapped. But that was one of the few jobs that I did on it. But there was so much other large-scale work and, yeah, quite enjoyable to do. But so many films. As you said, you looked at IMDb, but that's only got a fraction of the films on that I worked on. If you went to the website, you'll see pretty much most of the films I worked on. There's a few not on there. But, had a good career, really. Enjoyed working in the industry.
Yeah. What was it like working with like Ralph McQuarrie and George Lucas and because I mean, to make Vader, you probably had to, get clearance through them or talk, get how they wanted it. What was that all like? What was the process of making Vader?
I never worked with Ralph McQuarrie at all. I used his concept art to do the chest armor, the shoulder bells and shins on Vader. But the mask and the helmet were from a little drawing that John Mollo did. He was costume designer, and it wasn't a very good drawing, if I'm honest. So I had a lot to do with it. But the person that I mainly worked with was John Barry, the designer. He would come in most days. He'd come in or every other day. Some days he'd miss out. And George Lucas only came up at the end when it was ready for him to see and finished. And luckily he liked what he saw, and that was it. But a lot of people seem to be under the impression that there was a concept Vader done, but there wasn't. I had one go to do it, and that was it. I had to do it in the one go. Time was getting tight at that point. So, yeah, I had one go at it, and that was it. Whereas Liz was lucky enough to have extra time, and she did several versions of C-3PO's head and 2 or 3 of the body before it was settled on. So, yeah, and as I say, I did all the finishing work on C-3PO because she'd left the picture, which was carving it all in the plaster stage. So they'd moulded the clay, cast it in plaster. I carved the plaster up so it was all much tighter form and everything. All the lines were tidied up and carved to look pristine. And then it was remoulded and cast in fiberglass. And they had engineered bits on it as well. So, yeah. But, what's his name? Anthony Daniels was in all the films, wasn't he? The first 6. Met him a few times. He's a little bit precious, but these days, well, he's okay.
Yeah, I heard it. I've always heard that it was really tight to wear the costume the whole time, and and I couldn't imagine being in something like that all day.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been really uncomfortable in Tunisia for him. I think there was one lunch hour they went away to lunch and left him in it. So, yeah, he would have been really hot in that. Yeah. And even Dave Prowse, he wore Vader, but every time between takes, he would take the helmet and that off because he felt so claustrophobic in it. In fact, originally I did a back and a front to the mask, and the back was discarded. to make it less claustrophobic for him. And the chin vent was only put in at the last moment. They decided on a chin vent to give him more air, which I just put a line on in the clay, and the plasterers, once they'd cast it in the fiberglass, they filed it out, the fiberglass out to what the line I'd put on it. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people involved in a character like that. I mean, I did all the sculpting, so what I did is what you see on the screen. But then you get the mold makers. They take a mold and cast it. Then you've got the painters that do the painting side, spraying it, and so on. Then you've got special effects that do the box on the chest and the noise of the breathing and all that side of it. So there's a lot of people involved in it. People like John Barry, that never gets talked about whatsoever. The plasterers that do the moulding, their names are in the book, our book about the Stormtrooper, because they never get a mention at all. So it was nice to get them on there. So we had from the plasterers to the sculptors to John Barry, Lucas, and so on, John Mullow. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just one person. I had quite a big part to play in Vader, but there were other people that had to do their side of it. But
it's I mean, as a person that, you know, watches these films and, you know, you get to see it all come to life, and it's, you don't know all the back stuff. Like, you don't know that, you know, 5-6 people actually worked on that. And it's a really, really nice to know that, you know, everyone has a part, and how much of a team you guys had to be to really pull off one Star Wars, or most of the movies that you were on, and the fact that you guys had, you know, this much time to do it, it seemed like, in all of them.
Oh yeah, it's very, very tight time-wise. So you have to do the best you can in the time. Sometimes, especially before the camera starts rolling, you tend to have more time, and the designers will play about with something, change it a little bit. But as soon as that camera starts rolling, that's it. It all has to be done very quickly, because new sets have to be built. And they have to be ready in time for when the actors and the director and everyone needs to get on that set. So, yeah, I mean, that's when you were asked to do a silly overtime and all that.
Was there ever a time that you were like given a project, all right, I got to sculpt this, I got to make this, and here's your time frame, and you're just standing there going, I don't know how the hell I'm going to do this. Like, and I like, was there any like pivotal, like one that sticks out? You're like, man, there's no way I can do this, but you ended up doing it.
No, you end up doing it. There was one on the Bond Skyfall. I did the big Chinese lion for the casino set, and the HOD on it. I wasn't HOD on that picture. He told them it'll take 4 weeks at least. So because he knew I was pretty quick, he got me in, and I did. And they told him no, 3 weeks. We want it in 3 weeks. So I went and I did it, but it was tight. You know, I had to push myself to get it done in that time. But you do that, often you do it, and sometimes you do it, but you would think to yourself, I would like to have had a little bit more time on that to make it that much better. But sometimes it probably doesn't matter too much, because a lot of the work you do, especially on period pictures, it's in the background. So you never read it totally clear. It's just in the background. And what it does, it makes people believe that if it's the interior of a palace, because a lot of the time, like another Bond film, Octopussy, it was all Indian work. So I did all the Indian caps and columns and bases and architectural work. And they'll go out there and they'll maybe take the exterior of a palace, but you have to make the interiors believable. So on that one, that was a funny scene actually, where James Bond is in bed with one of the ladies that he often is in bed with, and a yo-yo saw comes down and rips into the pillow next to his head. Bond gets up and chases him, and there's a moat around the castle, and the mugger goes into it, and he's eaten by a crocodile. Well, I had to do a 14-foot crocodile. Did it all the detail was really good on it. It looked really realistic. And it was a night scene, and all you see is the back of the crocodile roll over, and that was it. And they had a stock crocodile that was awful, and they used it as a submarine to go over to the island where the palace was. And you see this crocodile really up close, and it was terrible. I always make a point of saying when I say that I did the crocodile I did, that it wasn't the one that was the submarine that they used to go across to the island. But the Bonds have always been very nice. I've worked on 10 Bond movies. They've always been nice to work on. I mean, the first one I worked on was Spy Who Loved Me, and I did the shark, the tiger shark that Jaws wrestles with in the Shark Tank, where Bond picks him up with a great big magnet by the teeth. So his teeth are up against the magnet, and then he drops him in the Shark Tank. So you can't have, one of the main actors wrestling with a live shark. So I did that shark, and it was done in foam rubber and painted to look really realistic. And Richard Keeley's wrestling with this shark in the Shark Tank. You also see the shark swimming in to an actress, and she was in the lift, and the floor goes away from her, and from the lift she's dropped into the Shark Tank, and that's when you see the shark swim up to her. I don't know exactly how they did it. They probably did it with fishing, like strong fishing line, and pulled it through the water or something like that. Because there's no way it would have been motorized or anything like that to swim. So yeah, they use every trick going in the film industry, and that's where special effects come in on certain things, and they work out how they're going to make things, work practically. So a bit like the heart that I did, because you've got the action of the heart going while the heart is in the hand of the high priest, and you can see all the veins hanging out, and you've got the double beat of the heart. So the special effects did that to make it really realistic. But is there anything else that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, let's if you don't mind talking about a little bit about Harry Potter. Like, what were some of the things that you sculpted for that?
There was a lot of bread and butter work on Harry Potter, but on 5 I had some nice work to do. The fireplaces where they walk through to the Ministry of Magic, there's all that ornate work around them, and they had 17 fireplaces in the end because they liked them so much. So I did all that ornate work around there. When they go through to the atrium, you see a big centaur on it. There's a woman with dresses flowing all around and I did a goblin for that, which is there, and there's Dobby on there as well, but someone else did that, but I did the goblins there. Then I did like a dragon there was about 6 of them they did, all painted gold. So I did the original in the clay. You'll probably find a lot of this stuff I've been talking about on the website, so you could probably download a few bits and pieces to make this more interesting as such.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to put some pictures in of things that you've been talking about for sure.
But you'll find them on the website. There's lots of different pages with the films and that. I think there's only about 35 films on there, although I've worked on 70. But a lot of the time, during my career, I never took photographs of work I should have. I mean, Darth Vader, I never took a picture of that at all. Anything on Star Wars. What I've got afterwards is pictures that I've managed to get hold of. Lucas didn't take. Gary Kurtz took lots of pictures. When I got involved with the court case, I managed to get a few pictures then that came up for the court case. But yeah, there's plenty there for you to download and add to this. If you go through what we've talked about, you'll find a lot of pictures there.
Now, as you progress through, because it seems like for me, it seems like every project that I work on, I just get a little bit better every single time. Toward the end of your career, is there anything that you wish you could go back to? Because I know I could have made this just 10 times better if I knew everything that I know now.
It's not really part of your mindset, really. You just do it in the time you've got to your best of your ability. And I don't think I'd like to go back, because I've done the best I can at the time, in the time you've got. So there's no point in thinking like that. Otherwise, I'd be miserable for the rest of my life, thinking I could have done that better. But yeah, you can only do the best you can in the time. Or I mean, obviously, sometimes your eye is working well or something, and you just find it easy to do a certain job. Other jobs you might be struggling with a little bit in your mind, but you still do them. No one else would know that. I mean, other people think, oh, that's a nice job, but then I maybe wouldn't think it's as nice as I could have done. But I don't think about going back and doing it again.
I respect that. You put it all on it seems like you just put it all on the table and you did it. Now, being retired, from the movie industry, what projects are you working on now?
Nothing sculpture.
Or hobbies?
Hobbies. I go fishing. I do a lot of work in the garden. We have a fairly big garden, so that takes time. And the house itself, I mean, we moved into what is an old barn. So there was a lot of work to do in it. The people we bought it off hadn't sort of maintained it as well. We put, a new roof on the main house, then all the office and that was done as well. Whole house had been painted, which I did inside and out. So yeah, there's always something you can find to do, and then there's family to go and see, grandkids and all that, and our travels. And as I said, we've travelled extensively this year, and actually one of the ones we did was we went to Fuji for 5 days, which was an hour south of Rome, and then they took us up to Rome for 2 days, and we went to see the Colosseum. The Vatican, it's got 7 miles of corridors. It's just rammed full of art, sculpture. Amazing place. And then we went, saw all Michael in Sistine Chapel, all Michelangelo's work. You finished the tour there. So, yeah, I mean, we've had some great places to go and see.
Is there any places on your list that you want to go to next that you haven't been to?
I'd love to go to Thailand, but I'm not going to be invited there for a convention. I doubt it. I mean, Germany, they're mad on Star Wars, so we've been there about 18 times. We're all over Germany we've been. In fact, we did go back this year. We actually stayed in a castle out there in the north of Germany, up on the Baltic Sea. So yeah, a guy that's he's one of the top lawyers in Germany, but he's mad on Star Wars, and he's set what's it called? What's the name of? Oh, she's gone. I can't think of her name.
The assistant's gone.
Yeah, he's done an amazing set up there of Star Wars stuff, sets and figures, and It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, so as I say, there's nowhere now. I mean, we did Austria this year, we did Switzerland, Slovakia, Germany, Canada, and many other countries, several in this country.
Well, where's your next convention here in the United States?
I don't know yet. We've not got anything planned. It's not like we're chasing them all the time. We get asked to do a lot, but then probably in the next week or two, we'll start applying to some. Some don't want to know, i.e. they don't appreciate behind the scenes. They want to get all the big names there, like New York Comic Con. We've applied to that a few times, and they've always not bothered. I mean, things like San Diego Comic Con, they've said, yeah, they'd love to have us out there, but then they don't play flights, they don't play hotel, they don't play anything. So, and they'll only give you, say, 2 hours signing a day. So you'd probably have to go some to get your money back. So there's no point in doing San Diego. So some want you, some don't. But we had a house out on the Gulf of Mexico for 17 years. So because it was only an internal flight there, we went to do lots of different conventions out there then. In Florida, Georgia, all over, Knoxville, Nashville, even out to I can't think of the name of that now. That's the problem. I tell you now, it's the problem with getting old. You forget names of things, and then 5 minutes later, it just comes to you. I think
I do the same thing all the time.
Well, you wait for a few years; it gets worse.
Sometimes I think that like you're more creative people, all have ADHD, so you forget about like half the things. Can't remember names to save your life, but I can remember your face.
Yeah, Puerto Rico, that was what I couldn't think of then. As I say, if I sit and think about it for 5 minutes, I can get it, but sometimes it won't come immediately.
Oh, that's so funny. One day I'm definitely gonna when I can catch you in the United States and I can get to you. I definitely want to meet you in person because I would love to continue up this conversation then too.
Yeah. Well, if I get one in the States next year, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. If I can make it,
It's such a big country, the USA, that it might be somewhere where you wouldn't want to travel and pay air flights and all the rest of it. So the likelihood of me getting one in Ohio or nearby, I don't know.
Well, Nashville's not too far. I really wish I could have went to ICCC so I could have met you.
Yeah, whether I'll get an invite back there next year or the year after, I don't know. We never tried to go back to the same place the next year. We won't ask them, but if they ask us, then we do. Like Basel in Switzerland, we've been there 4 times now. And they seem to want us to come back every year. So yeah, we say yeah. That's a huge one. That's 80-odd thousand people go to that one.
Couldn't even imagine that.
Yeah, I think San Diego is probably the biggest in the world. I think they get up to about 200,000 there. They have had, whether they still do, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to have to love you and leave you.
Hey, thank you so much for, telling your story and hanging out with us. And if you ever want to do another Shadows of the Workshop, I would love to have you on. You just let me know. We can talk more about other movies and things that you worked on, or just hang out and talk. So, thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me, and hopefully I'll see you in the future at some time.
We're definitely going to see each other. That's for sure.
All right, if you made it through that entire video, I want to say thank you. If you want to see more videos like this, click the like, subscribe, and stick around. You may see a lot more. We're going to be going through and interviewing a lot of independent creators coming up in the new year. So I'm really excited to be having that and hosting that. And I really hope that you guys are ready to come along. So thank you again for all the new subscribers. Past subscribers, thank you for tuning back. Really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you on the next one.